Dawn of civilization. The birth of bronze. Before the rise of cities, before kings and armies, there was the slow rhythm of human labor, the turning of soil, the shaping of stone, the gathering of grain under the sun. The Bronze Age began not with a war, nor with the crowning of a pharaoh, but quietly, in the hands of early humans who learned to bend metal to their will. From the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia to the rugged hills of Anatolia, from the banks of the Nile to the distant riverbeds of China, humans first discovered that copper, when combined with tin, could be transformed into bronze, a metal harder and sharper than stone, gleaming in the sunlight like fire captured in metal. This was the beginning of an era that would span continents, link civilizations, and ignite the sparks of human ambition unlike any age before. The story of bronze is the story of humanity itself, a story of ingenuity and risk, of empires that soared to dazzling heights and fell into ashes, of trade routes stretching thousands of miles and collapsing under pressure, and of men and women whose names history forgot, but whose hands forged the world we inherited. Imagine the first artisans kneeling before a glowing furnace, their faces red with heat, hammering molten bronze into spearheads, chisels, and ritual objects. Each strike echoed with potential, each creation a bridge from survival to civilization. These early metallurgists were the architects of progress, the unsung heroes who turned raw earth into tools, weapons, and symbols of power. In Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, the first city-states arose: Uruk, Ur, Eridu, and Lagash. By 3300 BCE, Sumerians had built cities of stone and mud brick, walled fortresses that stretched over tens of thousands of people, marketplaces teeming with merchants, scribes, and farmers. Bronze tools allowed them to construct canals and levees, control water for irrigation, and transform the landscape into a cradle of civilization. Writing emerged here, first as pictographs, then as cuneiform, to record trade, grain storage, and law. With bronze, Sumerians had not only shaped tools, but society itself. Kings and priests rose to prominence, art flourished, and monumental ziggurats climbed into the sky, signaling a new human mastery over both earth and spirit. Farther west, in the Nile Valley, Egypt was awakening to its own Bronze Age. By the Proto-Dynastic period, around 3015 BCE, Lower and Upper Egypt unified under a single pharaoh. Bronze allowed artisans to carve tools capable of carving limestone and granite, enabling the construction of tombs, temples, and pyramids. Hieroglyphs recorded every triumph, every offering, and every law, while artisans cast ritual bronzes that would survive millennia, testifying to a culture obsessed with eternity. The Egyptians understood the power of metal not just in war, but in ceremony, connecting their kings to gods and their people to the divine order. Bronze became more than a tool. It became a symbol of civilization itself. In Anatolia and the Near East, bronze technology spread rapidly, though unevenly. The Mycenae culture of the North Caucasus, as early as the mid-4th millennium BCE, had already discovered arsenical bronze. The Vinča culture in modern Serbia may have experimented with tin bronze in the 5th millennium BCE, a remarkable leap in metallurgical innovation. Across mountains and rivers, trade networks grew to connect the raw materials needed to produce bronze: copper mined in Cyprus, tin from Afghanistan, gold from Egypt, silver from Greece. Merchants, caravans, and sailors became the lifeblood of these early economies. Each ingot of metal was a link in a chain stretching hundreds, sometimes thousands of kilometers, a chain that would eventually strengthen the foundations of empires, but also make them fragile and vulnerable to collapse. By 2000 BCE, the Near East was a mosaic of flourishing civilizations. In Mesopotamia, the Akkadian Empire had reached its zenith, its armies and scribes wielding bronze with deadly precision. In Anatolia, the Hittites were constructing fortified cities and using bronze for chariots that would dominate the battlefield for centuries. Across the Mediterranean, the Minoans of Crete built palaces such as Knossos, their walls adorned with vibrant frescoes, while their fleets sailed for tin, copper, and ivory, their wealth enabling a culture of luxury and artistry unprecedented in human history. Every civilization was linked through trade, war, diplomacy, and migration. Bronze was the thread that tied them together, binding their fates across oceans and deserts. Yet bronze was not just a tool of conquest and power. It was also a symbol of human aspiration. With bronze, societies codified laws, carved statues, cast ritual objects, and fought battles. It enabled the first written histories and monumental architecture, transforming the human experience from mere survival to something resembling immortality.
The mastery of bronze signaled the emergence of hierarchy, governance, and specialization. Priests, kings, merchants, warriors, and artisans all relied on bronze to define their roles, to enforce social order, and to shape the destiny of generations. And yet, with all its brilliance, bronze was fragile in ways humans could not foresee. Dependent on scarce metals, on trade, on climate, and on labor, civilizations were vulnerable. The same interconnectedness that allowed empires to flourish also sowed the seeds of eventual collapse. Droughts, earthquakes, invasions, and famine. Even small disruptions in this delicate network could trigger catastrophes whose scale was unimaginable to those early metallurgists hammering their first bronze swords. What began as a story of ingenuity would one day become a tale of sudden darkness, of empires burning and knowledge vanishing, of civilization itself teetering on the edge. The Bronze Age was more than a period of history. It was a crucible. It tested the resilience of human societies, the limits of technology, and the consequences of connection.
In the Mediterranean, the Minoans of Crete rose as masters of the sea. Their palaces shimmered with frescoes of dolphins, bulls, and dancers, testament to a culture of beauty and ritual. They sailed to Egypt, Cyprus, and the Greek mainland, exchanging pottery, olive oil, and timber for bronze, tin, and luxury goods. Minoan ships, sleek and fast, cut through waves with expert precision, their sails full of wind and ambition. The Minoans' mastery of maritime trade gave them wealth and influence unparalleled in Europe at the time. They were traders, diplomats, and sometimes raiders, their civilization a delicate balance between diplomacy and power. Meanwhile, on the Greek mainland, the Mycenaeans were rising from the shadow of Minoan culture. Fortress palaces atop rocky hills, such as Mycenae, Thebes, and Tiryns, announced their authority through massive walls and monumental gates. Here, bronze was not only a tool, but a statement of strength. Warriors clad in bronze armor patrolled the hills, their spears and swords a visible testament to the might of their rulers. Mycenaean kings controlled resources and trade, overseeing the movement of bronze, pottery, and textiles, while scribes recorded transactions in Linear B, one of the earliest forms of written Greek. Every blade, every ingot, and every tablet was a piece in a game of power that stretched across the Aegean.
Across Anatolia, the Hittites carved a path of influence, establishing fortified cities and expanding trade networks. They were both warriors and diplomats, exchanging bronze for horses, timber, and grain. Bronze chariots thundered across battlefields, turning the tide of wars and creating an aura of invincibility. Yet the Hittites' success also relied on the fragile threads of trade. Without tin, their chariots could not be maintained, and without copper, their weapons would dull. Their strength, like all civilizations of the era, was inextricably tied to a network that spanned continents. Trade, however, was not merely economic. It carried ideas, religion, and culture. Gods and myths traveled alongside metals and spices. Artistic motifs from Crete appeared on the Greek mainland. Egyptian deities influenced Nubian rituals. Mesopotamian cuneiform inspired inscriptions in Anatolia. The Bronze Age was not a series of isolated civilizations, but a vast conversation between societies. Artisans, scribes, and merchants became carriers of knowledge, creating a shared cultural horizon that would shape human history for centuries. Yet this interconnectedness carried risk. As kingdoms prospered, competition for resources intensified.
The lands of the Iranian Plateau, stretching from the Zagros Mountains to the plains of Elam, were home to civilizations whose influence would echo for millennia. Elam, a pre-Iranian culture, thrived east of Mesopotamia, its people mastering both agriculture and metalworking. By the Middle Bronze Age, the city of Anshan, and later Susa, emerged as cultural and political centers, their artisans casting bronze weapons and ceremonial objects that would travel along trade networks reaching Mesopotamia and beyond. The Oxus civilization, centered on the upper Amu Darya, mirrored this development in Central Asia, creating proto-urban settlements with wheel-thrown pottery, irrigated fields, and burgeoning urban hierarchies. Cities like Altindepe were hubs of craft, trade, and governance, representing the spread of the Bronze Age beyond its Mesopotamian core. In the Levant, a cradle of human movement and exchange, civilizations balanced between the pressures of desert and sea. Coastal cities such as Ugarit became centers of commerce and literacy, linking Egypt, Anatolia, and Mesopotamia. These cities were cultural melting pots. Traders, scribes, and artisans from multiple civilizations mingled, exchanged ideas, and created a shared material culture. The early Syrian period saw the dominance of Eblaite and Mariite kingdoms, their palaces and archives teeming with cuneiform tablets.
Religion and writing were inseparable from Bronze Age society. Temples and shrines dominated city landscapes, reflecting a worldview where human and divine authority intertwined. In Mesopotamia, ziggurats towered above urban centers, each brick a symbol of devotion and civic pride. Egyptian temples and tombs, built with unparalleled precision, served as both spiritual centers and demonstrations of technological mastery. The scribes, few in number but immense in influence, recorded economic transactions, laws, and religious rites on clay tablets and papyrus scrolls. Writing became the invisible glue holding empires together, enabling administration, diplomacy, and the preservation of knowledge across generations. But bronze was not only a tool for civilization, it was also a weapon of war. Chariots and bronze swords revolutionized warfare, creating an elite class of warriors whose skill with metal determined the fate of cities and kingdoms. Conflicts were inevitable. City-states competed for arable land, control of rivers, and access to vital metals. Alliances shifted like sand, marriages between royal houses solidifying temporary peace, only to be followed by campaigns of conquest. Anatolia's Hittites, for example, used their bronze weapons and chariots to project power across the region, confronting Egypt in the storied battles of the Levant centuries later. Each conflict, each siege.
As the sun set over the fertile valleys of Mesopotamia, the deserts of the Levant, and the highlands of the Iranian Plateau, bronze gleamed in the hands of warriors and artisans alike. Civilization had reached a pinnacle of artistry, architecture, and administration. Yet, beneath the shining metal, the world was vulnerable, its societies poised on the precipice of the sudden darkness that would soon descend. A darkness that would test the resilience of kingdoms, the endurance of culture, and the very meaning of civilization. By the late Bronze Age, the ancient world had reached an extraordinary level of complexity, interconnectedness, and sophistication. Egypt, the eternal kingdom of the Nile, stood as a monumental symbol of human ingenuity. Pharaohs of the New Kingdom, Ahmose, Thutmose III, Hatshepsut, and Ramses II, commanded armies, oversaw vast construction projects, and maintained an intricate bureaucracy that regulated every facet of life. Temples like Karnak and Luxor, and monumental structures like the pyramids of the period, showcased both religious devotion and the technical mastery of bronze artisans, engineers, and laborers. Bronze tools shaped colossal statues, carved hieroglyphs into stone, and allowed Egypt to flourish as a center of wealth, power, and cultural dominance.
Far to the north, the Hittite Empire had forged one of the most formidable powers of Anatolia.
In northern Syria and southeastern Anatolia, the Mitanni kingdom emerged as a major regional power. Founded by an Indo-Aryan elite ruling over a Hurrian population, Mitanni reached its zenith between 1500 and 1300 BCE. Skilled horsemen and chariot warriors, the Mitanni leveraged bronze technology to maintain dominance, while strategic alliances with Egypt allowed them to navigate the treacherous landscape of Near Eastern politics. Their control over key trade routes facilitated the movement of tin and copper, ensuring that their armies and artisans remained supplied. Diplomacy was as critical as warfare. Mitanni rulers corresponded with pharaohs through clay tablets, negotiating marriages, alliances, and trade agreements that bound distant empires together in fragile balance. Cyprus, the island at the heart of the Mediterranean, became synonymous with copper, the lifeblood of the Bronze Age. Its mines fed the workshops of Egypt, Anatolia, and the Aegean, while local artisans refined their techniques, producing high-quality tools, weapons, and luxury items. Cypriot cities thrived as commercial hubs, their harbors bustling with ships from far-flung civilizations. Bronze, tin, and luxury goods flowed through these ports, linking economies and cultures across the ancient world. Yet, this prosperity also created vulnerability. A disruption in trade or a natural disaster could ripple across the region, threatening the stability of even the most powerful empires. The Late Bronze Age was a time of cultural flourishing as well. Artistic styles traveled alongside trade goods. Minoan frescoes influenced Mycenaean palaces. Mesopotamian motifs appeared in Anatolian pottery, and Egyptian hieroglyphs inspired writing systems in distant lands. Religion, too, transcended borders. Gods, myths, and rituals were exchanged, adapted, and syncretized, creating a shared spiritual vocabulary across civilizations. Temples, ziggurats, and palaces became centers of worship, administration, and cultural identity, reflecting the intertwined nature of politics, religion, and art.
As night fell over the Mediterranean, the glow of bronze reflected the flickering fires of palaces, workshops, and temples. Empires stood proud, trade networks hummed with activity, and human ambition reached unprecedented heights. Yet, like a delicate tapestry, this interconnected world hung by a thread. One gust of disaster could unravel it all, setting the stage for the cataclysmic events that would plunge the ancient world into darkness. By the 12th century BCE, the vibrant tapestry of late Bronze Age civilizations faced an unprecedented crisis. What had seemed a world of limitless possibilities, bustling cities, vast trade networks, monumental architecture, and thriving empires began to unravel. The Mediterranean and Near East, interconnected by commerce and culture, became vulnerable to the convergence of natural disasters, social unrest, and violent invasions. Scholars today often call this period the Bronze Age collapse, a catastrophic event that reshaped the political, economic, and cultural landscape of the ancient world. Central to this unraveling was a period of prolonged environmental stress. Research has revealed that from roughly 1250 to 1100 BCE, much of the Near East and Eastern Mediterranean experienced a mega-drought. Core samples from lakes and sediment deposits show that rainfall plummeted, rivers shrank, and agricultural yields collapsed. Crops failed across wide swaths of fertile land, triggering famine, social unrest, and mass migration. Populations that once thrived along the Nile, Tigris, Euphrates, and in Anatolia faced stark choices: flee, fight, or perish. As Klein notes, drought did not strike all regions equally. Egypt and Babylon, protected by mighty rivers, weathered the worst impacts better than coastal and inland cities elsewhere. But in the Levant, Cyprus, Anatolia, and Greece, the megadrought fueled desperation and instability, creating conditions ripe for invasion and upheaval. Natural disasters compounded these stresses. Geophysical evidence points to a rapid succession of major earthquakes between 1225 and 1175 BCE, a phenomenon modern researchers term an earthquake storm. Cities built on unstable alluvial plains, Troy, Ugarit, and Hattusa, for instance, were particularly vulnerable. Walls collapsed, temples crumbled, and infrastructure essential for trade and governance was destroyed.
The combination of famine and seismic activity weakened urban centers, making them easy targets for opportunistic invaders. The sudden and simultaneous failures of multiple cities created a domino effect that reverberated across the entire region. Into this chaos came the enigmatic Sea Peoples. Egyptian records describe them as marauders arriving in waves, attacking coastal settlements with chariots, infantry, and maritime skill. Reliefs from Ramses III's temple at Medinet Habu depict massive sea battles in which the Egyptians ultimately repelled these invaders. Yet while Egypt survived, many other kingdoms were not so fortunate. Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, was burned to the ground. Mycenaean palaces across Greece were destroyed, abandoned, or heavily damaged. Cities such as Megiddo and Ugarit vanished from the archaeological record, leaving behind charred ruins and shattered records. Some scholars propose that the Sea Peoples were a symptom of broader instability, desperate populations displaced by drought, famine, and earthquake, migrating across the Mediterranean and attacking weakened kingdoms.
As night fell over the Mediterranean, the glow of bronze reflected the flickering fires of palaces, workshops, and temples. Empires stood proud, trade networks hummed with activity, and human ambition reached unprecedented heights. Yet, like a delicate tapestry, this interconnected world hung by a thread. One gust of disaster could unravel it all, setting the stage for the cataclysmic events that would plunge the ancient world into darkness. By the 12th century BCE, the vibrant tapestry of late Bronze Age civilizations faced an unprecedented crisis. What had seemed a world of limitless possibilities, bustling cities, vast trade networks, monumental architecture, and thriving empires began to unravel. The Mediterranean and Near East, interconnected by commerce and culture, became vulnerable to the convergence of natural disasters, social unrest, and violent invasions. Scholars today often call this period the Bronze Age collapse, a catastrophic event that reshaped the political, economic, and cultural landscape of the ancient world. Central to this unraveling was a period of prolonged environmental stress. Research has revealed that from roughly 1250 to 1100 BCE, much of the Near East and Eastern Mediterranean experienced a mega-drought. Core samples from lakes and sediment deposits show that rainfall plummeted, rivers shrank, and agricultural yields collapsed. Crops failed across wide swaths of fertile land, triggering famine, social unrest, and mass migration. Populations that once thrived along the Nile, Tigris, Euphrates, and in Anatolia faced stark choices: flee, fight, or perish. As Klein notes, drought did not strike all regions equally. Egypt and Babylon, protected by mighty rivers, weathered the worst impacts better than coastal and inland cities elsewhere. But in the Levant, Cyprus, Anatolia, and Greece, the megadrought fueled desperation and instability, creating conditions ripe for invasion and upheaval. Natural disasters compounded these stresses. Geophysical evidence points to a rapid succession of major earthquakes between 1225 and 1175 BCE, a phenomenon modern researchers term an earthquake storm. Cities built on unstable alluvial plains, Troy, Ugarit, and Hattusa, for instance, were particularly vulnerable. Walls collapsed, temples crumbled, and infrastructure essential for trade and governance was destroyed. The combination of famine and seismic activity weakened urban centers, making them easy targets for opportunistic invaders. The sudden and simultaneous failures of multiple cities created a domino effect that reverberated across the entire region. Into this chaos came the enigmatic Sea Peoples. Egyptian records describe them as marauders arriving in waves, attacking coastal settlements with chariots, infantry, and maritime skill. Reliefs from Ramses III's temple at Medinet Habu depict massive sea battles in which the Egyptians ultimately repelled these invaders. Yet while Egypt survived, many other kingdoms were not so fortunate. Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, was burned to the ground. Mycenaean palaces across Greece were destroyed, abandoned, or heavily damaged. Cities such as Megiddo and Ugarit vanished from the archaeological record, leaving behind charred ruins and shattered records. Some scholars propose that the Sea Peoples were a symptom of broader instability, desperate populations displaced by drought, famine, and earthquake, migrating across the Mediterranean and attacking weakened kingdoms.
Trade networks, the lifeblood of Bronze Age prosperity, collapsed. Cyprus's copper mines went silent. Tin shipments from Afghanistan faltered, and the intricate flow of raw materials and luxury goods stopped almost overnight. The disappearance of trade caused economic collapse, unemployment, and social upheaval. Bronze, the metal that had fueled armies, built monuments, and enabled artistic expression, became scarce. Societies adapted by turning to iron, which, though more difficult to forge initially, offered a new path forward. The Cypriots, previously masters of copper, became early innovators of ironworking, illustrating human resilience in the face of systemic collapse. Cultural consequences were profound. Writing systems, such as Linear B in Greece, disappeared as scribes, the literate elite, were lost or displaced. Administrative systems broke down, and monumental construction projects ceased. Knowledge, once carefully preserved across generations, was forgotten or rendered inaccessible. Populations fragmented, regional identities emerged, and centuries of urban sophistication gave way to what historians call the Greek Dark Ages and parallel periods elsewhere. Yet in this collapse, seeds of renewal were planted. New societies eventually arose from the ashes, informed by the lessons, technologies, and cultural achievements of their Bronze Age predecessors. The Late Bronze Age collapse stands as a stark reminder of the fragility inherent in even the most advanced civilizations. Interconnectedness, which had allowed kingdoms to flourish, also magnified vulnerability. Nature, migration, and human ambition intertwined to produce a perfect storm. In a matter of decades, empires that had lasted centuries were toppled. Cities that had shone as centers of art, trade, and governance were reduced to ruins, and entire languages disappeared. The gleaming bronze of the age, once a symbol of power and progress, became a relic of a world that had vanished almost overnight. The collapse of the Late Bronze Age left the Mediterranean and Near East in a state of profound upheaval. Cities that had once teemed with tens of thousands of people lay in ruins, their walls toppled, palaces charred, and marketplaces silent. Trade networks that had connected civilizations from Cyprus to Afghanistan were severed, leaving former economic powerhouses isolated and vulnerable. In Greece, the Mycenaean palaces never recovered. Linear B, the written language of administration, vanished alongside the scribes who had mastered it. Greece and the Eastern Mediterranean entered a period historians call the Dark Ages, a time of diminished literacy, population decline, and regional fragmentation that would last for several centuries.
Yet, even amidst desolation, human resilience persisted. Survivors adapted to new realities, finding ways to sustain life and preserve knowledge despite the collapse. Former urban elites either fled to safer regions or integrated into rural communities, while local artisans and farmers adjusted their skills to meet the needs of smaller, decentralized societies. In many areas, trade resumed at a reduced scale, often relying on local resources instead of long-distance commerce. The fall of monumental centers like Hattusa and Ugarit did not end human innovation. Instead, it created opportunities for smaller communities to experiment with new technologies and social structures that would shape the centuries to come. One of the most significant technological shifts of the post-Bronze Age world was the rise of iron. Bronze, reliant on tin and copper, had become scarce due to disrupted trade routes. In response, emerging societies turned to iron, abundant in local ores, as a new material for tools and weapons. Though iron required higher smelting temperatures and more complex forging techniques, its strength and availability made it revolutionary. The Cypriots, previously renowned for copper mastery, became pioneers in iron technology, producing plows capable of tilling tougher soils and weapons capable of dominating the battlefield. This transition did more than replace bronze. It transformed agriculture, warfare, and economic production,
setting the stage for the rise of classical civilizations. Culturally, the aftermath of the Bronze Age collapse created fertile ground for innovation and transformation. With the fall of centralized bureaucracies and palaces, artistic styles, religious practices, and cultural motifs became more localized. Oral traditions flourished as literacy declined, preserving myths, legends, and heroic tales that would later influence classical Greek epics, including the Iliad and Odyssey. Temples and shrines were rebuilt on a smaller scale, reflecting the shifting power from grand empires to local rulers and communities. This period of adaptation also facilitated the blending of diverse cultural influences, as survivors from different regions intermingled, introducing new ideas, beliefs, and technologies that would seed future societies. Despite the darkness, some civilizations demonstrated remarkable resilience. Egypt, protected by the Nile, emerged largely unscathed, maintaining its bureaucratic system and monumental building projects. Assyria, although weakened, gradually consolidated power, eventually becoming the dominant military empire of the Near East. In Greece, the gradual recovery of literacy and political organization during the early Iron Age laid the groundwork for the city-states of classical antiquity. Even the scattered remnants of the Hittite kingdoms in Anatolia adapted, merging with local cultures and contributing to the emerging Neo-Hittite states.
The lessons of the Bronze Age collapse are striking. Interdependence, while a source of strength, can amplify vulnerability. Environmental pressures, migration, and social upheaval can combine in ways that challenge even the most advanced societies. Yet human ingenuity and adaptability ensured that the knowledge, skills, and cultural achievements of the Bronze Age were not lost forever. From the ashes of ruined cities and shattered empires arose the foundations of the Iron Age, setting humanity on a new path toward technological advancement, political organization, and cultural sophistication. Even as the late Bronze Age kingdoms fell into disarray, certain regions demonstrated remarkable resilience, preserving the knowledge, traditions, and economic practices that would define the early Iron Age. Egypt, the mighty Nile civilization, emerged largely unscathed. Shielded by natural geographic barriers and nourished by the dependable rhythms of the Nile, the Egyptians continued monumental construction, administrative governance, and religious practices almost uninterrupted. The pharaohs of the New Kingdom maintained their armies, temples, and sophisticated bureaucracies, ensuring that Egypt retained its position as a dominant cultural and political power. The Nile not only provided life-giving water, but also stabilized the economy during a period when many neighboring civilizations faced famine and migration. Assyria, too, adapted with remarkable agility. While the Amorite and Kassite dynasties of Mesopotamia faltered during the collapse, Assyria capitalized on the power vacuum to consolidate territories, reorganize military structures, and expand its influence. From the city of Assur, Assyrian kings implemented innovations in administration, warfare, and trade, transforming their realm into a formidable power that would dominate the Near East in the centuries to follow. These early Iron Age kingdoms demonstrate how societies capable of flexibility, strategic adaptation, and resource management were able to survive systemic collapse and emerge stronger. In the Eastern Mediterranean, the story was more complex. Greece and the Aegean Islands, devastated by the collapse, experienced centuries of decentralized village life and diminished literacy. Yet even in the shadow of this dark age, innovation continued. Villages experimented with ironworking, new agricultural practices, and local governance. Oral traditions, once supplementary to written records, flourished, preserving the heroic narratives and myths that would later influence classical Greek literature. Over time, trade networks slowly revived, initially limited and regional, but expanding as stability returned, connecting mainland Greece, Crete, Cyprus, and the Levant once again.
Cultural continuity and transformation also became evident in Anatolia and the Levant. The remnants of the Hittite Empire, which had vanished during the collapse, reorganized into Neo-Hittite city-states. These small kingdoms maintained elements of Hittite law, religion, and art, while integrating local traditions and influences from Assyria, Phoenicia, and the broader Near East. In the Levant, city-states such as Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos became centers of maritime trade,
thriving on the production of luxury goods, timber, and metalwork. These urban hubs exemplify how societies that preserved specialized knowledge and adapted economically could achieve resilience despite the larger regional decline. One of the most significant outcomes of this transitional period was the technological and material shift from bronze to iron. As tin and copper became scarce due to disrupted trade, local iron resources became increasingly valuable. Early ironworking required experimentation with higher temperatures and novel smelting techniques, giving rise to skilled metallurgists whose innovations would define the military and agricultural capabilities of emerging societies. Iron plows expanded arable land, while iron weapons provided advantages in both defense and conquest. This metal revolution transformed economies, political power, and societal structures, effectively reshaping the trajectory of civilization. By examining the survivors of the Bronze Age collapse, a pattern emerges. Societies that were geographically insulated, environmentally resilient, and capable of adaptation survived and even flourished. They carried forward the achievements of the Bronze Age, writing, architecture, trade, and metallurgy into the Iron Age. At the same time, the collapse facilitated new cultural expressions, hybridized traditions, and emerging political entities that reflected lessons learned from catastrophe. From the ruins of fallen empires, the foundations of classical civilizations were quietly laid, their evolution propelled by both continuity and transformation. Following the devastating collapse of the Late Bronze Age, the survivors of fallen civilizations demonstrated remarkable ingenuity in preserving and rebuilding their social, economic, and technological systems. Writing, once confined to the elite scribes of palace bureaucracy, evolved to meet the needs of smaller communities. In Mesopotamia, cuneiform script continued to be used in administrative, religious, and commercial contexts, though on a smaller scale. The techniques of record-keeping adapted to local governance, allowing city-states to manage resources, trade, and justice efficiently. Similarly, in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Phoenicians, emerging from the Levantine coast, refined their alphabet into a simpler, more versatile script. This innovation not only ensured cultural continuity, but also laid the groundwork for later writing systems that would influence the Greeks, Romans, and ultimately the modern world.
Trade networks, once shattered, slowly reconnected as communities sought essential raw materials and goods. Local economies revived first, but long-distance exchanges gradually re-emerged. Cyprus retained its prominence as a copper supplier, while Lebanon became a hub for cedar wood and luxury goods. Maritime trade routes facilitated the movement of not only resources, but also ideas, technology, and cultural practices. From the ports of Byblos and Tyre to the emerging markets of Greece and Anatolia, the post-collapse period saw a remarkable adaptability. Societies learned to balance self-sufficiency with interdependence, fostering both resilience and innovation. Governance systems also evolved. Where centralized Bronze Age kingdoms had once dominated, the post-collapse era often saw the rise of smaller, locally administered city-states. Leaders derived authority not solely from divine kingship or military dominance, but from the ability to manage resources, adjudicate disputes, and facilitate trade. These early civic structures in the Levant, Anatolia, and Greece provided the political foundation for later classical city-states. In Egypt, the pharaohs maintained continuity, but even here, local governors gained more practical autonomy, overseeing agricultural production, tax collection, and regional defense. This decentralization allowed societies to be more flexible in responding to environmental, economic, and military challenges. Art and religion reflected both continuity and adaptation. Pottery, sculpture, and metalwork continued the motifs and techniques of the Bronze Age, but with regional variations influenced by the mingling of cultures. In Greece, the heroic traditions of Mycenaean civilization were preserved orally and gradually codified into epic poetry. The Phoenicians and Levantine city-states adapted their religious practices and iconography to accommodate local beliefs and foreign influences, creating a syncretic cultural identity that endured for centuries. Temples, shrines, and communal spaces became centers not only for worship, but also for social cohesion, education, and the transmission of technical knowledge. Technologically, innovations of the Bronze Age were refined and transformed. Ironworking advanced rapidly, offering both agricultural and military advantages. The use of plows, carts, and irrigation systems spread more widely, enhancing food production and population stability. Pottery, weaving, and metallurgy continued to evolve, reflecting both the persistence of ancient skills and the creativity of societies forced to adapt to new realities. These technological adaptations allowed communities to thrive despite the loss of centralized empires, proving that even after systemic collapse, human ingenuity could prevail.
The post-collapse period was not merely a time of survival. It was a crucible in which the foundations of the classical world were forged. The lessons learned during this era about resilience, adaptation, and the integration of knowledge shaped the trajectory of civilizations for centuries to come. From writing and governance to art, religion, and technology, the echoes of the Bronze Age reverberated through the emerging Iron Age, ensuring that the achievements of humanity were not lost but transformed, setting the stage for the great classical civilizations of Greece, Rome, and beyond. As the dust settled from the chaos of the Bronze Age collapse, the knowledge and innovations of the previous era did not vanish. Rather, they were repurposed and adapted by the emerging Iron Age societies. In architecture, the lessons learned from monumental palaces, fortresses, and temples persisted, even as the scale of construction shifted to reflect smaller political units. Surviving masons and artisans utilized stone, mud brick, and timber to construct enduring civic structures, fortifications, and communal spaces that combined functional efficiency with aesthetic expression. The layout of cities became more organized, reflecting lessons in urban planning from the Bronze Age, such as water management, street grids, and defensive walls, ensuring that communities were both resilient to external threats and efficient in resource distribution. Metallurgy evolved rapidly, driven by necessity and the scarcity of traditional bronze resources. Iron, once difficult to smelt and shape, became the metal of choice. Blacksmiths, drawing on the techniques and chemical understanding developed during the Bronze Age, mastered the forging and tempering of iron for tools, weapons, and ritual objects. This technological leap allowed for the creation of plows capable of turning the heavier soils of post-collapse landscapes, increasing agricultural yields and stabilizing populations. In warfare, iron swords, spears, and arrowheads surpassed bronze in durability and effectiveness, reshaping the balance of power across regions. The metallurgical expertise inherited from the Bronze Age was a bridge, ensuring continuity while enabling innovation. Governance structures also reflected a fusion of old and new. The collapse had dismantled large centralized kingdoms, giving rise to smaller, flexible city-states and regional powers. Leaders retained administrative practices from the Bronze Age, such as record-keeping, taxation, and legal codes, but adapted them to decentralized contexts. In the Levant, Phoenician city-states like Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos implemented maritime trade networks that drew on Bronze Age commerce while innovating new routes and partnerships. In Mesopotamia, Assyria expanded its administrative sophistication, integrating military, economic, and judicial functions to exert control over increasingly diverse territories. The ability to merge Bronze Age administrative expertise with new political realities provided these societies a competitive advantage and set the foundation for the great classical civilizations of Greece, Rome, and beyond.
Cultural continuity persisted alongside adaptation. Religious and artistic traditions survived, often in modified forms. Temples, altars, and shrines maintained ritual practices, yet integrated new symbols and deities from neighboring regions. Oral storytelling preserved heroic tales of the Bronze Age, blending myth and memory to shape early literature. In Greece, the epic narratives of the Mycenaean period influenced the Homeric epics, while in the Near East, Mesopotamian myths informed the beliefs and storytelling traditions of emerging cultures. Artistic motifs, geometric patterns, symbolic imagery, and depictions of deities continued to be expressed in pottery, sculpture, and metalwork, showing both continuity and regional adaptation. Trade, once the lifeblood of the interconnected Late Bronze Age world, resumed in modified forms. Iron tools and weapons, agricultural products, textiles, and ceramics became the commodities of the early Iron Age. Communities that had survived the collapse leveraged their geographic advantages, such as proximity to rivers, coasts, or resource-rich territories, to re-establish local and regional networks. Maritime trade along the Mediterranean, coupled with overland exchanges across Anatolia and Mesopotamia, facilitated the movement of not only goods, but ideas, technologies, and cultural practices. These networks laid the groundwork for the vibrant economic systems of the classical era. The post-collapse period demonstrates a profound lesson. Human societies are remarkably resilient, capable of transforming adversity into opportunity. The knowledge, technology, and cultural achievements of the Bronze Age did not disappear. They were preserved, adapted, and expanded upon. This continuity, coupled with innovation born of necessity, created the fertile soil from which classical civilizations emerged. The cities, armies, trade networks, and cultural traditions of the Iron Age were not abrupt inventions, but evolutionary developments, deeply rooted in the achievements and experiences of the Bronze Age. As the echoes of the Bronze Age collapse faded, the survivors were left not only with memories of shattered kingdoms, but also with invaluable lessons in trade, warfare, and diplomacy. The interconnected networks that had once linked Egypt, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and the Mediterranean were fractured, yet the foundational principles endured. Trade, previously conducted on an international scale with luxury goods, metals, and agricultural produce, adapted to the constraints of the post-collapse world. Regional hubs like Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos in the Levant re-emerged as centers of commerce, using maritime expertise inherited from their Bronze Age ancestors. Ships carried timber from Lebanon, precious metals from Cyprus, and luxury items from distant ports, echoing the sophisticated trade routes that had flourished centuries earlier. These networks, although smaller, became the backbone for regional prosperity, ensuring that knowledge, goods, and cultural practices continued to circulate.
Warfare, too, was reshaped by the collapse. The vast armies and chariot-dominated strategies of the late Bronze Age kingdoms gave way to smaller, more mobile forces adept at using the new iron weapons. Iron swords, spears, and arrowheads provided unprecedented advantages, and militaries learned to adapt tactics based on terrain, geography, and available resources. In Mesopotamia, Assyrian armies began experimenting with organized infantry formations and siege warfare, setting the stage for their later dominance. In Greece, city-states such as Mycenae, Athens, and Thebes redefined military leadership, combining Bronze Age techniques with innovative strategies suited to local landscapes. Warfare became not only a means of conquest, but also a tool for political consolidation, securing trade routes, and protecting scarce resources. Diplomacy became equally crucial. With large empires fragmented, emerging city-states and kingdoms learned to negotiate alliances, tribute systems, and trade agreements. Mitanni in northern Syria and southeast Anatolia illustrates this principle perfectly. Once a regional power, it navigated the post-collapse landscape by forming strategic alliances with Egypt and later the Hittites, leveraging marriage treaties, trade, and diplomacy to maintain influence. Similarly, the Phoenician city-states exercised soft power, using cultural influence, skilled negotiation, and maritime prowess to maintain autonomy while facilitating trade across the Mediterranean. These diplomatic strategies allowed smaller societies to flourish, even when military strength alone was insufficient to guarantee survival. The foundations of early empires and city-states were laid during this transitional period. In Mesopotamia, Assyria and Babylon expanded in parallel, incorporating Bronze Age administrative knowledge, taxation systems, and legal codes while adapting to new political realities. Egypt continued centralized rule, using Nile-based infrastructure to maintain agricultural surplus, administrative control, and monumental construction. In Anatolia, Neo-Hittite kingdoms synthesized Hittite traditions with local practices, ensuring cultural continuity and regional stability. Even in the Aegean, the fragmented Greek world experimented with governance, combining village-level autonomy with emerging city-state structures that emphasized civic duty, shared defense, and communal decision-making. Warfare, cultural transmission, and trade networks during this post-Bronze Age period shaped the trajectory of classical civilizations. Writing systems evolved, art and religion flourished, and technological innovations, particularly iron metallurgy, enabled societies to thrive despite challenges. The lessons of cooperation, adaptation, and strategic thinking learned during the Bronze Age collapse informed the political, military, and economic strategies of these early Iron Age civilizations. In essence, the experiences of collapse created more resilient, adaptable societies, capable of thriving in an interconnected yet volatile world.
The legacy of these developments is profound. Without the trade networks, diplomatic frameworks, and technological innovations preserved and adapted from the Bronze Age, classical civilizations such as Greece, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, and the early Levantine city-states might have emerged far more slowly or differently. The lessons of resilience, adaptability, and integration from the Bronze Age echo through history, demonstrating that even the most catastrophic collapses can give rise to renewal, growth, and innovation. Even after the upheavals of the Bronze Age collapse, the echoes of human ingenuity persisted. Bronze Age civilizations, despite falling to the perfect storm of droughts, earthquakes, famine, and marauding invaders, left an indelible mark on the cultures that followed. Religious practices, artistic expressions, and technological innovations became the threads that wove together a tapestry of continuity and adaptation in the early Iron Age. Temples and shrines, once the pride of large empires, continued to function as centers of spiritual and civic life, albeit on a more localized scale. Rituals survived, adapted to new political realities, and often integrated elements from neighboring cultures, reflecting a dynamic cultural exchange born of both necessity and resilience. The spiritual life of these societies, sacrifices, festivals, and divination practices, was both a link to the past and a foundation for evolving belief systems, influencing subsequent civilizations across the Mediterranean and Near East. Art and craftsmanship flourished as artisans drew upon Bronze Age techniques while experimenting with new forms and materials. Pottery, sculpture, and metalwork carried forward motifs of deities, animals, and geometric patterns that had adorned Bronze Age artifacts. In Greece, the continuity of artistic traditions is evident in the transition from Minoan frescoes to Mycenaean reliefs and later classical Greek sculpture. In Mesopotamia, Assyrian and Babylonian reliefs and statues incorporated iconic imagery from Sumerian and Akkadian predecessors, blending narrative storytelling with political symbolism. Even in architecture, the lessons of the Bronze Age endured. The construction of fortified cities, palaces, and monumental tombs continued to reflect principles of spatial organization, defensive engineering, and aesthetic harmony first developed during earlier periods. Urban layouts prioritized access to water, efficient transportation routes, and defensible positions, demonstrating an enduring understanding of practical and symbolic architecture.
Technological innovations, particularly in metallurgy, agriculture, and writing, acted as catalysts for social evolution. Iron, now increasingly available and manageable, replaced bronze for tools and weapons, revolutionizing agriculture and warfare. Plows forged from iron allowed farmers to cultivate heavier soils and increase crop yields, supporting population growth and urban expansion. Militaries equipped with iron swords, spearheads, and arrowheads could defend territories more effectively and project power with unprecedented efficiency. Writing systems, which had been nearly lost during the collapse, were reinvigorated. Cuneiform and hieroglyphic scripts continued in ritual, legal, and administrative contexts, while new alphabets, such as the Phoenician script, emerged to facilitate trade and communication across regions. The rediscovery and adaptation of literacy strengthened governance, record-keeping, and cultural identity, providing stability to emerging Iron Age societies. Social structures evolved in tandem with technological and cultural advances. The hierarchical organization of Bronze Age kingdoms, with kings, priests, and elites at the top, transformed into more flexible models in city-states and regional powers. Political authority became increasingly tied to control over resources, trade, and military capacity, rather than solely divine sanction. Yet the symbolism and ceremonial practices inherited from the Bronze Age maintained the sacred legitimacy of rulers and reinforced social cohesion. Education, apprenticeship and crafts, and the transmission of religious and legal knowledge ensured that cultural memory survived, even as societies adapted to new realities. Communities developed mechanisms for cooperation, conflict resolution, and innovation that allowed them to thrive in an era defined by both opportunity and volatility. Trade networks, once disrupted by the collapse, slowly re-emerged, but with a new emphasis on resilience and diversification. Raw materials such as tin, copper, silver, and gold continued to circulate, but trade also expanded to include agricultural products, textiles, ceramics, and cultural artifacts. Maritime networks in the Mediterranean, riverine systems in Mesopotamia, and caravan routes in Anatolia facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, and technologies. These interactions not only fueled economic recovery, but also reinforced cultural cohesion and innovation, bridging regions that had once been intricately connected during the Bronze Age. The continuity of culture, technology, and social organization underscores a profound lesson. Human civilizations, even after catastrophic collapse, possess an extraordinary capacity to adapt, preserve knowledge, and innovate. The achievements of the Bronze Age, its monumental architecture, advanced metallurgy, intricate trade networks, and vibrant cultural practices did not vanish. They became the foundation upon which Iron Age societies rebuilt, evolved, and laid the groundwork for the classical civilizations of the Mediterranean, Near East, and Asia. In the ashes of collapse, the enduring spirit of human ingenuity persevered, shaping the course of history for millennia to come. From the earliest days of the Bronze Age, the sea was both a conduit and a challenge for human civilization. Coastal communities quickly realized that mastery of maritime navigation offered unmatched advantages: access to distant resources, expanded trade networks, and opportunities for cultural exchange. In the aftermath of the Bronze Age collapse, survivors along the Mediterranean coast drew upon centuries of seafaring knowledge, adapting and refining it to meet the challenges of a fragmented world. Ships, once laden with copper, tin, ivory, and luxury goods, became instruments not only of commerce, but also of diplomacy, exploration, and defense. Maritime expertise transformed into a form of soft power, allowing smaller communities to wield influence far beyond their terrestrial borders. The re-emergence of these networks was instrumental in shaping the early Iron Age civilizations and bridging the gaps left by fallen Bronze Age empires.
Phoenician sailors were masters of celestial navigation, using the stars to traverse vast distances and return reliably to their home ports. The sea became a highway connecting regions, ensuring the flow of commodities, ideas, and cultural practices. In essence, the Phoenicians became the inheritors and innovators of Bronze Age maritime knowledge, transforming fragmented post-collapse trade routes into robust, far-reaching networks. Naval power also became a tool of influence and security. Coastal city-states recognized that protecting trade routes required more than diplomacy. It demanded fleets capable of both defense and projection of power. Small, agile vessels enabled rapid response to pirate attacks, rival city-states, or marauding groups, including those echoing the destructive legacy of the Sea Peoples. Coastal fortifications, harbors, and watchtowers complemented these fleets, ensuring that critical trade hubs remained secure. The integration of maritime strategy with political governance demonstrated a remarkable continuity of Bronze Age principles adapted to the new realities of the Iron Age world. Control of the sea meant not only economic prosperity, but also a significant role in regional diplomacy and conflict resolution, reinforcing the interdependence of maritime and terrestrial power. Cultural diffusion followed the currents of these maritime networks. The Phoenicians did more than trade goods. They transmitted knowledge, religion, art, and writing systems across the Mediterranean. The spread of the Phoenician alphabet, a streamlined and adaptable script,
revolutionized literacy in the ancient world. Greek, Latin, and other scripts owe their origins to this simple yet powerful system, highlighting the long-lasting impact of Bronze Age trade and seafaring on intellectual and cultural development. Beyond language, artisans, religious practices, and artistic motifs traveled along these maritime routes, blending local traditions with imported influences to create vibrant, hybrid cultures that would define the Iron Age Mediterranean. The legacy of Bronze Age seafaring is evident not only in trade, but also in exploration and urban development. Maritime knowledge allowed societies to settle on islands, along coastlines, and in strategically advantageous harbors. Ports became centers of innovation, cultural exchange, and political power, forming the backbone of emerging city-states and regional empires. These communities learned that mastery of the sea provided resilience against both natural disasters and human threats, reinforcing lessons drawn from the Bronze Age collapse. By harnessing maritime trade and naval strategy, post-Bronze Age societies laid the foundations for civilizations capable of enduring challenges, expanding influence, and creating interconnected networks that spanned continents.
The sea, once a path for survival and commerce, became a stage upon which the next chapters of human civilization would be written. It was a reminder that the innovations, knowledge, and strategies of the Bronze Age were not lost, but transformed, allowing humanity to rise again from the shadows of collapse. In mastering the waves, civilizations demonstrated resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring spirit of exploration that continues to define the human story. The legacy of the Bronze Age did not end with collapse. It transformed, adapted, and laid the foundation for the civilizations that followed. Across the Near East, Mediterranean, and Asia, societies absorbed Bronze Age knowledge in metallurgy, agriculture, urban planning, and governance, blending old traditions with emerging innovations. Tools once crafted from bronze were gradually replaced by iron, but the techniques honed over centuries, smelting, alloying, casting, and precise forging, remained central to technological advancement. The mastery of metals allowed early Iron Age societies to produce stronger tools, more durable weapons, and intricate ceremonial objects, reinforcing the link between craftsmanship and cultural identity. This continuity underscores a profound truth. Even amidst societal collapse, human ingenuity persists, finding new avenues to survive and thrive. Agriculture, too, benefited from the lessons of the Bronze Age. Irrigation techniques, canal systems, and crop rotation, developed by Sumerians, Egyptians, and other civilizations, were adapted and improved to meet the demands of growing populations. Fertile river valleys remained the heartlands of early Iron Age civilization, and water management became both a necessity and a measure of political power. Kings and city-states that controlled access to irrigation could maintain social stability, fuel urban growth, and support large armies, echoing the centralized authority structures first forged in Bronze Age kingdoms. At the same time, agricultural surplus facilitated trade, enabling the exchange of goods, ideas, and artistic practices, further linking communities across regions and reinforcing the interconnectedness that had characterized the earlier era. Social hierarchies, political organization, and religious practices also reflected continuity from the Bronze Age. The ideals of kingship, priesthood, and elite patronage survived as guiding principles, ensuring that early Iron Age rulers could legitimize their authority through ritual, architecture, and public works. Temples, palaces, and fortified cities remained symbols of power and centers of governments, just as they had been centuries before. Yet there was evolution. Political systems became more flexible. City-states and regional powers emphasized pragmatic alliances, and new forms of governments emerged to cope with decentralized populations. Religion, art, and ceremonial practices, often inherited from Bronze Age predecessors, served as cultural glue, preserving shared memory while enabling societies to adapt to new realities.
trade and cultural exchange flourished as maritime networks rebuilt themselves along the Mediterranean, the Levant, and the rivers of Mesopotamia. The Phoenicians, already masters of the sea, expanded their influence, ensuring that ideas, technologies, and artistic styles spread rapidly across regions. Cities like Tyre, Sidon, Byblos, and Ugarit became hubs not only of commerce, but also of intellectual and artistic innovation. The spread of alphabets, particularly the Phoenician script, revolutionized literacy and communication, making record-keeping, legal documentation, and storytelling more accessible to societies than ever before. These innovations directly trace back to Bronze Age precedents, demonstrating the resilience and adaptability of human culture. Even in warfare, Bronze Age lessons persisted. Fortifications, chariot tactics, and siege techniques informed the strategies of emerging Iron Age armies. While weapons transitioned to iron, the principles of organization, logistics, and disciplined military training remained deeply influenced by Bronze Age experience. Armies became more mobile, better equipped, and more strategically sophisticated, enabling states to defend territories, expand influence, and enforce trade agreements. The military innovations of the Bronze Age were thus not lost but transformed, contributing to the political stability and territorial consolidation that would define the early Iron Age. Art, literature, and intellectual pursuits also carried forward the torch of Bronze Age culture. Stories, myths, and epics rooted in the collective memory of Sumerians, Egyptians, Minoans, and Mycenaeans continued to inspire creativity. Architectural forms, from ziggurats to palace complexes, served as blueprints for new constructions, blending functionality with aesthetic grandeur. Craftsmanship in jewelry, pottery, and metalwork reflected a continuity of skill, while innovations introduced regional diversity and cultural identity. Writing systems, once nearly lost, flourished anew, allowing the codification of laws, religious texts, and literary works. The Bronze Age, in this sense, became the silent architect of the Iron Age, a guiding force that shaped the trajectories of human societies across continents.
The influence of the Bronze Age on social structures was equally profound. Hierarchies, governance systems, and religious institutions that had been forged during the era of kings, priests, and elite artisans continued to shape societies. Temples, palaces, and fortifications served as both functional centers of authority and symbols of enduring cultural identity. Rituals, festivals, and the codification of laws maintained social cohesion, while the lessons of past collapse encouraged flexibility and innovation in governance. The intertwined threads of religion, politics, and daily life reflected a civilization deeply aware of its vulnerabilities but committed to continuity and progress. In many ways, the surviving societies were wiser for having experienced the fragility of interconnected empires and the consequences of environmental, social, and economic stressors. Technological innovation remained at the heart of Bronze Age legacy. Metallurgical knowledge, honed over centuries of working with copper, tin, and bronze, set the stage for the advent of ironworking. Agricultural techniques, from irrigation to crop rotation, informed the sustainability of early Iron Age societies. Urban planning principles, ranging from city walls to drainage systems, provided a template for resilient and functional settlements. Even artistic expression, in sculpture, pottery, and jewelry, reflected the technical mastery and aesthetic sensibilities of the Bronze Age. By building upon these achievements, societies of the early Iron Age were not starting from scratch. They were standing on the shoulders of giants. Cultural transmission was perhaps the most enduring gift of the Bronze Age. Writing systems, codified laws, religious texts, myths, and epics continued to inspire and educate. The stories of gods, heroes, and kings traveled across regions, shaping identity, morality, and political legitimacy. Knowledge, once confined to elite scribes, gradually became more accessible, spreading literacy, record-keeping, and intellectual exchange across broader segments of society. The triumphs and failures of the Bronze Age became cautionary tales, guiding the decisions of rulers, merchants, and communities alike. Ultimately, the Bronze Age represents a remarkable chapter in human history, a period of extraordinary creativity, ambition, and connectivity. Despite the catastrophic collapse that ended many empires,
the lessons learned, technologies developed, and cultural achievements accomplished continued to shape the trajectory of human civilization. The bridges built during this era between peoples, ideas, and technologies enabled the rise of the Iron Age, the flourishing of classical civilizations, and the enduring story of human innovation. In the echoes of Bronze Age cities, the clang of bronze tools, and the whispers of long-lost trade routes, one can hear the persistent heartbeat of humanity, resilient, inventive, and forever reaching toward new horizons.